In 10th place, I decided to put the mine. It is very good because it is one of the first structures in the caves. After 1.18, it became even more beautiful in combination with underground biomes. It has chests with loot and rails that can be used in farms. I also like that you can spend hours wandering in them, since the structure is just huge. The only downside perhaps is that she's boring. It would seem that everything I list before this should say the opposite, but in fact you won't be able to stay there a long time, because there are no mobs of your own, the structure is very monotonous, there are only two types of mines, this is the one that is dark and the one that hangs on chains. So I think that the mine should be updated in the future. In 9th place is the room with the spawner. How is it better than the previous structure? Well, at least in that you can interact with this room. Firstly, build farms. Secondly, only in this dungeon can the music record from 118 APM. You need to spend a huge amount of time looking for it. Personally, I searched for about 5 hours in my world.
What the hell were you thinking?
But let's get back to the mechanisms. This place is perfect for gaining experience in the early stage of the game. You can even not build anything and just kill mobs when they are spawned. It seems like there aren't that many directions, but it's still interesting to return to it and come up with interesting things in it. The 8th place is deservedly taken by the desert temple. This is probably the funniest structure of all. How many funny moments there were with this temple.
And going down that way.
You're right, later!
Yes, if we talk about it even a non-joking manner, then its purpose is the same as that of the jungle temple, to teach the player the mechanisms right in the game. Why didn't I put it higher? In principle, everything is simple. It is much more common than the jungle pyramid, and it has much more loot. This is exactly that people go the for. Diamonds, gold, iron, notch apple, golden apple, saddle, armor templates. All this is very valuable for players both in the early stage of the game and in the later ones. Despite the fact that the structure is 10 years old, it has managed to maintain its relevance, and this is very cool. In 7th place is the Shanken ship. This is where the really tough structures begin, because the ship is a whole chain of quests. So let's start with the fact that you found this ship and collect loot in chests. Most likely one of the chests will have a treasure map. You take this map, go on a journey, and having found the treasure, you can find a sea heart, from which you can compile the underwater guide. But you can do this only if you have a prismarine blocks, which can only be obtained in the dungeon with the guards. And all this starts with one ship. The developers really tried hard on this structure. Everything here is definitely better than the previous ones. Top 6 open with the underwater template. The very place you will theoretically come to when you want to build an underwater conduit. It is good everything, starting with mobs. When the ancient guardians were given the ability to impose an effect on you that slows down the speed of digging, it was the most brilliant idea. Yes, it immediately acquired a new meaning. You can't just dig straight ahead and clear it. You have to explore every corridor, every room, and along the way meet guardians. It was also the first huge dungeon and the first mini-boss in the game. The loot doesn't seem to be very useful, only building blocks and the sponge. But if you suddenly need the former, a new branch of content will immediately open up where you build farms and constantly fight guardians. I decided to put mansion in 5th place. Yes, despite the fact that I often say that the structure is not very good, especially after 1.14, I decided to play it again and you know, I liked it. Before that, I considered dungeon from the point of view the loot and mobs, but I did not take into account the most important feature of the mansion. This is a mansion. It sounds strange, but the whole joke is that it is always generated infinitely. Sometimes you can find some rare room with a reward. When you walk around this place, you immediately get the picture that they settled here a long time ago. They have their own farms, their own bedrooms, halls where they discuss something. I really like this attention to detail. In combination with hostile mobs, this mansion becomes even more interesting to explore. In 4th place is the Piglin Bastion. For me, the structure is interesting in all respects. When it was populated by ordinary piglins, it was difficult but bearable. But after adding brutal piglins, the dungeon became a real challenge. When I entered this building in my world, my heart immediately pounded because I was afraid for my resources. What I also like is that there are 4 types of bastions: barracks, hoglin stables, a breach, and treasury. That is a bastion for the rich. I call it that because you can steal so much gold there that you will have enough for your whole life. I'm not even talking about netherite and diamonds. Also, special respect for the visuals of the structure. It seems that the dungeon is destroyed, but there are still moments when, for example, near the breach you see a snout, or something like a farm in the center. 3rd place goes to the Ant City. The level of its thoughtfulness is off the charts. Let's start with the fact that there is only one inhabitant of this dungeon. He serves you both as an enemy and as an assistant. As an enemy, he often hinders you, lifting you up. You also need to select a battle tactic for him, because he can cover himself with a shell. And if you hit him often, he will teleport. He helps you when there are moments like this, when there are no stairs or steps. You have to provoke the shulker so that he'll launch the projectile at you, and only then will you be able to fly to the top floor. The reward here is probably the most valuable. Here you have armor, tools, weapons, and shulkers. In short, a gold mine. The structure is brilliant in every sense, and I would have put it in 1st place, if not for the 2 following structures. The second place is Trial Hall. Of course, it could not be lower. A whole update was devoted to it. This dungeon proves that the developers can make such a structure that the players will return to again and again for loot. The gameplay does not boring even after dozens of passes, and all because the dungeon is very random. Indeed, it will be difficult to find completely identical trial halls. Personally, I still find something new for myself. The structure essentially did everything that players asked for a long time. A replayable dungeon, very good loot, and interesting long battles. Well-deserved second place. Well, the well-deserved first place goes to the Ancient City. I couldn't help but put it in first place. It just fits the game perfectly, and Warden is simply the best mob, at least because of its mechanics. For example, in the last video I didn't mention that there are places in the dungeon where the floor is wool, so that you can move along it without attracting the attention of Warden and Skulk Screamers. Thus, you will move along certain paths and only occasionally go out for loot. What is also good about this dungeon? It just has a lot of decorations, references, mini structures, and of course, as I can't help but mention this huge head of Warden, about which a bunch of theories have already been written. It's pretty weird that the best dungeon appeared at the worst main con. By the way, if you want to know about all main cons and how they went in a short period of time, then watch the video that you seen on the screen. But for now, bye.